She walked away with his heir, after the Alpha King called another woman his true family. There are moments in a person's life that split everything into before and after. For Seraphine, that moment came on a cold winter evening, inside a hall full of people, while her husband stood up and told the whole world that someone else was his home. She did not scream, she did not cry. She just sat there, at the head table, holding her wine glass, and listened. And in that silence, she made a decision that would change everything. Let's go back to the beginning. Seraphine was not born into a royal family. She was raised in a small household on the edge of wolf-shifter territory. A quiet girl who grew up learning how to read people before they could speak, how to stay calm in a room full of tension, and how to love without making a big show of it. She was the kind of person who never demanded anything from anyone, not because she didn't want things, but because she had spent so many years making herself small just to fit in somewhere. When the Alpha King, Heir, chose her from a list of candidates to be his queen, she didn't think it was a love story at first. It was an arrangement, a political one. His council wanted a stable mate bond. She was considered a good choice, calm, intelligent, adaptable. She wouldn't cause trouble. She wouldn't embarrass anyone. What nobody expected was that Heir and Seraphine would actually fall into something real. It wasn't dramatic or loud the way it is in stories. It was slow and quiet. He taught her to ride a horse on the back fields where no one could watch and laugh if she fell. She started leaving books on his desk, not because he asked, but because she noticed the ones he picked up and put down again during long council meetings. He learned how she took her tea. She learned that he only rubbed the back of his neck when he was genuinely worried about something, not when he was performing it. They never said the word love to each other, but it was there. At least, she thought it was. The trouble arrived on a wet November night, escorted by 2 border guards who said they had found a woman wandering near the outer territories. Her name was Mara. Heir's entire body changed the moment he saw her. Not in an obvious way. If you didn't know him, you would have missed it. But Seraphine knew him. She saw the way his shoulders dropped, the way his breathing shifted, the way he crossed the room without even thinking, like his body had already decided before his mind caught up. Mara was someone from his past. His first love, actually. The woman he had been betrothed to before everything fell apart 7 years ago. The court had assumed she was dead. Heir had assumed she was dead. And somewhere in that grief, he had buried something he never fully let go of. She was back now, and she needed asylum. Heir explained this to Seraphine that night in a few short sentences, and Seraphine nodded, and that was the end of the conversation. He seemed to think that was enough. He seemed to think she was fine. She wasn't fine. But she didn't say that. Over the next few weeks, small things started to add up. Heir canceled 2 evenings with her in a row because he was meeting privately with Mara. A servant told Seraphine's sister that he had been seen holding Mara's hand in the lower garden. At one council meeting, he defended Mara's continued presence at the palace, with a kind of passion he rarely brought to anything outside of battle strategy. And then there was the way he looked at her. Seraphine watched it happen at dinner one evening. The way Heir looked at Mara across the table, not with desire exactly, but with something softer and more dangerous than desire. Relief. The look of someone who had been carrying heavy guilt for years, and had finally, after all that time, been allowed to set it down. Seraphine understood then what she was really up against. This wasn't a simple attraction. This was history, and history, when it walks back in the door, has a way of making the present feel temporary. She had something important to tell him during all of this. She had known for almost a month. She was carrying his child. She kept waiting for the right moment, something quiet and private, just the 2 of them, where she could say it without it getting lost in everything else that was happening. The right moment never came, and then the banquet happened. The winter solstice banquet was the biggest event of the year. Every great house in the kingdom sent representatives. The hall was full of candles and cold air, and the kind of polite, watchful tension that powerful people carry around like a second skin. Seraphine wore deep wine red that night. She had her crown on. She looked every bit the queen she had worked so hard to become. Heir entered the hall with Mara on his arm, not escorting her as a guest, presenting her. The way you present someone you are proud of. Mara was wearing the colors of the royal house. The room went quiet in that particular way. Rooms do when everyone is pretending not to have noticed something they all definitely noticed. And then Kaiser raised his glass and began to speak. He talked about how grateful he was that Mara had returned. He talked about what she meant to him. And then, without thinking about what was sitting at the head table 20 feet away from him, he said it. Mara is the one who has always been my true family. She is home to me in a way I cannot explain, and in a way I am only now allowed to say. The hall went absolutely still. Slowly, the way people do when they're trying not to be obvious about it. Almost every head in that room turned toward Seraphine. She was sitting at the head table. Her wine glass was halfway to her lips. She set it down, carefully, without a sound. Her face did not move, not one muscle. She had learned this. How to be perfectly composed in a room that was watching you fall apart. She sat through the rest of the banquet. She smiled at the right people. She spoke when she was spoken to. She did every single thing a queen is supposed to do. All of this while carrying his child inside her body. All of this while every person in that hall pitied her. Kaiser came to her room past midnight. He was not drunk. That was almost worse. He sat down across from her and started explaining. The words came out wrong at the banquet, he said. He didn't mean it the way it sounded. Mara was something from his past, a different kind of family, not a romantic thing, not what she was probably thinking. He still respected Seraphine. He still valued what they had. He talked for a long time. She listened to all of it. When he finished, she said, I believe that you believe what you're saying, but I think you need to figure out what kind of man you are, and I think it would be better for both of us if you did that without me in the room. She asked him to leave. He left. He assumed she would still be there in the morning. She had always been there. He had never once thought about what would happen if she decided not to be. She didn't sleep that night. By the time the first light came through the windows, she had made two decisions. She was keeping the baby, and she was leaving. Not because she was broken, not because she had given up, but because she could not raise a child in a palace where the child's father had publicly named another woman as his home, while their mother sat at the head table and held herself together with both hands. She was not willing to teach her child that kind of survival. She told only her sister, Elara. Elara tried to talk her out of it. You have rights here, she said. The baby is the heir to the whole kingdom. You could fight this. Seraphine shook her head. I don't want to fight. I want my child to grow up watching their mother choose herself. That's worth more than any crown. She left before the second bell of morning. No maids, no guards, no royal seal. She took her mother's ring, an old piece, nothing to do with the palace, and the little leather journal she had kept since she was 12 years old. At the eastern gate, Chancellor Rowe was standing there. He was Kaiser's most trusted advisor. He had watched everything happen over the last few months, and said nothing, because it was not his place. But he handed her a purse of coins and a folded map. Neither of them spoke. By the time the palace woke up, her chambers were empty and perfectly made. No note, no letter, no dramatic goodbye, just absence, which said everything she hadn't said in months. She went to a border village called Ashfen, a small, quiet place that had no interest in palace politics. She used a different name, said she was a widow, found work as a seamstress. A pack elder named Luna Briseus, who Elara had quietly contacted in advance, took her in without questions or judgment. For the first time in years, Seraphine breathed. She grew her garden. She sewed. She let herself be ordinary. She let herself be no one important. And slowly, quietly, she found that being no one important felt more like herself than being a queen ever had. A few months in, she met a local nobleman named Caspian, who owned land nearby. He was polite and curious, and, crucially, he never pushed. He asked her nothing she didn't offer first. They became careful, unlikely friends. She didn't know what to do with someone who was simply kind, without wanting anything back. It was a foreign feeling. She decided to let it be good. In late spring, she had her baby. A boy. Dark hair, gray eyes, the same gray as Kaiser's, which she had been prepared for, and which still made her breath catch when she first saw them. She named him Kale. In the old wolf tongue, it meant inheritance of the self. That first night, sitting by the fire with him pressed against her chest, she made him a silent promise. He would know who he was. He would never be made to feel like second best. and whoever came into their life would have to earn the right to be there. Back in Ironmore, the kingdom was starting to crack. Wolf shifter culture measures a ruler's strength partly through the mate bond. A king whose queen had publicly walked out was a king whose judgment people started questioning. Quietly at first, then less quietly. Political alliances began to loosen. The eastern houses sent delegations asking pointed questions. Council members who had respected Seraphine started cooperating less. And Mara, it turned out, did not want to be queen. She had never wanted that. She had loved a younger version of Kaiser, a boy who didn't exist anymore. They were both figuring this out now, slowly and painfully, and it was not a pleasant thing to watch. It was Chancellor Rowe who finally said what needed to be said. He sat across from Kaiser one evening and told him, plainly and without softening it, "You have not lost a wife. You lost the only person in this palace who was loyal to you by choice. Not because of protocol, not because of fear, not because of what you could do for them. Every single person in this hall serves you out of obligation. She served you out of something else entirely, and you told the whole kingdom that it wasn't enough." Kaiser didn't have an answer for that. He started going back through every memory he had of Seraphine, all the small things, the books on his desk, the way she always made space for him to come to things on his own time, the way she had asked him nothing about Mara on that first night when she must have wanted to ask everything. He had read her silence as peace. It wasn't peace, it was love. It was her making room for him, over and over again, and him walking through the door without once looking at who had held it open. It took him 4 more months to find her. Rowe had known where she was the whole time. He told Kaiser eventually, but only after Kaiser asked properly. Not as a king asking for information, as a man asking for help. That was the first time Kaiser had ever done that. He noticed the difference himself. He came to Ashfen alone. No announcement, no guards. He found her at the village market on a bright morning, Kale bundled against her chest, laughing at something a neighbor had said. He stopped a little way off and watched her for a moment. She was completely herself, not performing anything, not managing anyone. Just there, laughing, with her baby, in the ordinary morning light. She noticed him before he could move. Her expression moved through 3 things in a matter of seconds. Recognition, grief, and then, that familiar composure she had always been so good at. She waited. She didn't run toward him, and she didn't run away. They talked for a long time in the back garden of Luna's cottage. He saw Kale. He understood immediately, the gray eyes, the quiet, watchful way the baby studied him. He didn't say anything for a moment. He just held his son and looked at him. Then he looked at Seraphine and told her everything. He told her he had loved her, that he confused the guilt he had been carrying about Mara for something sacred, and that guilt had made him stupid. He told her that he had treated his past as though it mattered more than his present, and that he had not understood, not truly, that the present was her, until she was gone from it. "I went looking for home in something that already ended," he said, "because the thing that was right in front of me asked more of me than I knew how to give." She listened to all of it, and she didn't cry. She had already done her crying, alone in the small hours of Ashfen, in the months when the baby was asleep, and she let herself feel the full weight of everything she had lost. She was not cold now, she was just clear. She told him she believed him. She told him she did not doubt that he had changed. And then she said the thing she had needed to say for a long time. "A man who loves me should not need to lose me before he can see me. I am not a lesson. My son is not a consequence. We are people. And we deserve someone who chooses us while we are still in the room." She told him she was not coming back to the palace. Not yet. Maybe not the way things had been. But she also told him that Kale would know his father. She would not take that away from either of them. If Kaiser wanted to be part of their lives, he was welcome to. But he would have to do it on their terms, in their world, in a village, where his crown meant nothing, and his showing up meant everything. Kaiser didn't go back to the palace that night. He got a room at the village inn. He showed up the next morning and knocked on Luna's door and asked, quietly, if he could hold his son. Seraphine watched him sit down in the worn wooden chair by the window, with Kale in his arms, and she saw something on his face she had never seen in all their time at court. He was completely unguarded, no performance, no authority, Just a man holding a baby, terrified and present in equal measure. That was the real beginning. Not a dramatic reunion, not a grand gesture, just a man showing up, small and honest, in someone else's quiet life. He spent weeks in Ashfen, then months. He rearranged things with Ro's help, so he could be there more than anyone expected. He learned to exist in a place where no one bowed to him. He learned what it meant to earn someone's trust back slowly, without the weight of a crown to do the work for him. And Seraphine let him. Not all at once, not easily. But the way that seasons change, not by announcement, just by degrees. Until one morning you notice the air has gone warm, and you can't quite say when it happened. She did not stay in Ashfen forever, but she carried it with her when she eventually left. The stillness she had found there. The version of herself that didn't need anyone's permission to exist. That stayed, and Cale grew up watching his mother choose herself first. He grew up watching his father work, genuinely work, to be in a room where he wasn't the most important person. He grew up knowing exactly what both of those things looked like. That, in the end, was the inheritance she had always meant to give him. End